Okay, I will explain some point at the 8th meeting in monetary economics course.
Problem of inflation and deflation. First, definition of inflation and deflation. Second, types of inflation and deflation. Third, cause of inflation and deflation. Fourth, policies resolve inflation. Definition of inflation and deflation. Inflation is an increase in the price of goods in general, where there is a tendency to increase price continuously within a certain period of time. The price increase event is not only for one or two goods, but extends to almost all goods in a city or country. Deflation. Deflation is a condition in which there is a massive and continuous decline in the price of goods in a short period. This deflation is in stark contrast to inflation, which causes an increase in the price of goods in general. Therefore, deflation can also be defined as disinflation or a decrease in the inflation rate in a country. So, inflation is an increase in the price of goods compared to the previous period, while deflation is a decrease in the price of goods that is far from the previous period. Types of inflation and deflation. Type of inflation. 3 types of inflation. Inflation type based on severity. First, like inflation. In this type, inflation has a rate of less than 10% per year. Second, moderate inflation. Then the next type of inflation has a rate of between 10% to 30% per year. Third, heavy inflation. It is in a more dangerous condition, which is having a rate of between 30% and 100% per year. Fourth, hyperinflation. An increase in goods occurs when the rate of inflation accelerates to more than 100% per year. Types of inflation based on the cause. First, demand-pull inflation. This inflationary condition is caused by the high demand for goods caused by the large amount of liquidity in the market. This situation affects price change. Second, cost-push inflation. Apart from high demand, inflation can also be caused by change in the level of supply, the scarcity of production and distribution, even though normal demand can trigger an increase in price in accordance with the supply-demand theory. Types of inflation by origin. First, domestic inflation. This includes loss to the state budget on a ongoing basis. In this situation, the government, through the central bank, namely Bank Indonesian, usually printed new money to cover needs. However, this can lead to advanced inflation if not managed properly. Second, inflation from abroad result in an increase in the price of import products. This example of inflation is commonly experienced by developing countries that use raw materials from abroad in their production process or that carry out international trade. Types of deflation. First, strategic deflation. Deflation arising from the enactment of policies relates to controlling the symptoms of excessive consumption in order to suppress price increase in the market. Second, circulation deflation. This deflation occurs during a period of transition from a stable economy to an economic downturn. This condition arises because of an imbalance between consumption and production power. Causes of inflation and deflation. Causes of inflation. First, demand pull effect. Second, cost-driving effect. Third, exchange rate. Fourth, money supply. Fifth, national debt. Causes of deflation. First, structural change in the capital market. Second, increased productivity. Third, decrease in the money supply. Policies resolve inflation. Uncontrolled inflation will certainly lead to economic instability in the community. The government, through Bank Indonesian, usually takes policies when inflation starts, including monetary policy and fiscal policy. First, monetary policy. The measure through monetary policy is a method used by the central bank, or Bank Indonesian, to regulate the amount of money in circulation so that it affects economic activity and suppress inflation. Some of the policies taken were: first, open market operations. Second, discount policy. Third, compulsory cash reserve ratio. Fourth, selective enforcement of credit. Fifth, moral appeal. Fiscal policy. Fiscal policy, namely directing economic conditions as expected. The instruments of this fiscal policy usually include tax, government spending, and government loans.
Inflation is a serious problem regarding the economic stability of a country. For example, we look at the case study from Suchi and friends on the impact of import towards Indonesian inflation Q1 in 2014. Inflation case in Indonesia. We look at the case study from Evi Suci, Yuan Arsinta, Arifia, Nurfadillah, Ikdanisa for the period 2014 entitled The Impact of Import Towards Indonesia's Inflation Quarter 1 in 2014. The year of 2014 was a year of recovery and stabilization of the global economy due to the Lehman Brothers bankruptcy phenomenon in 2008 and the crisis in the European region, namely in Greece in 2012. To overcome this phenomenon that caused panic in global financial markets, especially in Europe and the United States. The United States made an unusual economic policy, namely the quantitative easing policy. The state of Indonesia's trade balance deficit is exacerbated by the changing lifestyle of the Indonesian people, especially when the BI rate declines in Indonesia. The level of consumption is getting worse due to the large number of people who take credit for consumer goods. In fact, most of the consumer goods, such as electronic devices, fast food and restaurant food, clothing, and so on are imported goods. If Indonesian consumption cannot be suppressed in Indonesia, imports will not be able to keep up with foreign export, and in the end there will be a large trade balance deficit. Looking at the policies that have been implemented by Indonesia as a preventive measure to reduce the current account deficit that occurred in 2014. According to the governor of BI, however, Indonesia's export can be increased because it is beyond Indonesia's control. The existence of the prospectus of the shale gas revolution in the United States of America has resulted in threatened commodity price. With the export ban on several metals such as nickel and bauxite, Indonesia's trade balance is in a minus condition. Based on the calculation, it was obtained that there was an export ban on nickel and bauxite, which is contribute to the deficit of 0.2%. Therefore, the governor of BI took a solution by suppressing the consumption pattern of people who consume imported goods in excess. The following are ways to reduce consumption of imports, including increasing income tax on imports, increasing value-added tax on luxury goods, lowering the exchange rate of the rupiah against the dollar, and decreasing the amount of credit. Based on the data above, it can be concluded that the level of imports affect inflation. This can be seen from: first, the high number of imports affect the inflation rate. Inflation tends to fall. This is because consumers prefer to shop for foreign products compared to the domestic product, thereby reducing domestic inflation. Second, the increase in imports causes the depreciation of the exchange rate. This is because the domestic companies profit more foreign money to able to buy imports from abroad. So the depreciation of the exchange rate tends to increase inflationary pressure because imports become more expensive. Third, an increase in the price of import goods, which are used as materials for the production of companies, will increase the production costs of domestic companies and will result in an increase in product price. This results in an increase in domestic inflation. Fourth, the government's policy regarding free imports makes it easier for foreign products to enter to the country. This has a significant effect on the inflation rate. Inflation will turn to increase. Fifth, weak agriculture sector and domestic production triggering import policies from abroad. Actually, this can be an alternative to meet domestic needs, but only for a moment. However, on the one hand, it can destroy the source of life in the long term. From the discussion above, it can be concluded that inflation is a symptom where the price level in general has increased continuously, and inflation is also able to become a benchmark for a country in carrying out import activities, where import is an activity to supply goods and services carried out by a country from outside the territory of its country in order to meet the needs of goods and the service in the country. Due to the lack of supply of domestic production and the exhaustion of supply of goods and services to meet domestic consumption needs.